Welcome to the Stay Ready Real Estate Podcast, where we stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I'm your host, Emeka. And what this podcast is all about is letting you know that regular people like you and me can invest in real estate to become wealthy. You don't need millions and billions of dollars to invest in real estate. You can actually invest in real estate with little to no money down. I'm just here to let you know that as long as you have time and can take action, you can become wealthy. And all it takes is a couple of years for you to honestly become financially free. So tune in. Hope you enjoy.
What's going on, Stay Ready fam? Today, what we're talking about as I am on the road to IBS is the perfect time to buy. This morning, I had a great conversation with my realtor, and what we talked about is realtors jumping in the game, thinking things are easy, and end up going part-time because it ended up being harder than what they thought. They thought it would just be they thought it would just be easy to, buy and sell homes for their clients, of course. And we talked about COVID specifically because during COVID, most people were able to sell their homes 20, and I've heard crazy up to like 200 grand over asking. And I'm not exaggerating. That is definitely something I've heard. And right, I can't fact check it or not, but I do know people who've sold or bought a home well of 50 above asking. And COVID was a very special time. But during COVID, because of this, because houses were selling so easily, realtors thought that they could just go in and do the same thing. Hey, if I can sell a home, a $300,000 home for $500,000 and my commission is 6%, well, why wouldn't I want to be a realtor? Why wouldn't I want to get that? Well, Emeka, what does that have to do with the perfect time to buy? Well, like a realtor, right? They thought it was the perfect time to get in because of the market, right? Because COVID brought down interest rates, because COVID made it easier to sell because there was so much pent up demand and because people can buy a large, or excuse me, an expensive home for a lower monthly payment because of the interest rate. Well, it's the same thing as an investor. People want to time the market, wait for interest rates to drop, wait for that perfect time to get in because that perfect time is what's going to help them make the most money. And for some reason, it is a common theme that I hear all the time. I jumped into real estate in 2020. It's currently 2026. And there has never been a perfect time. The perfect time to buy does not exist. And I'm here to bust that myth, right? Because people wanted to jump in the real estate game in 2020 because the interest rates were low, right? And when it comes to flipping, maybe, yeah, maybe that might have helped, right? But when it comes to long term investing, which is why many people get into real estate, it wasn't because the interest rates were low, but only if you got a fixed rate, a fixed interest rate is whenever it was going to make perfect sense for you, as well as the market appreciated like within a couple of months, right? So during COVID, the interest rate, I had a 2.99 interest rate. And because the interest rate went low, because the demand was high, prices were high. Hence, people were buying things 200 grand over asking. But that's phony pricing. It's phony pricing. What do I mean by it's phony pricing? That means that the demand was high and because of that, people were offering more. But that does not mean that that house was actually worth that much. Their money that they were paying monthly was lower because of the interest rates, but that doesn't change the value of the home, right? Because what happened? Now we're in 2026. Now interest rates are hovering between 6 and 7, and sometimes you can get a 5. But, houses are slowly depreciating. I mean, they're not going up in value here in Florida. I believe we're down to roughly between 4 to 5%, depending on what article that you see. But there is no perfect time to buy. The perfect time to buy is always today. You always have to Just make sure that your numbers work as it is today and get a fixed interest rate. And make sure that you always remember the Warren Buffett quote, you know, be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy. During COVID, plenty of people were greedy, right? Not saying don't buy, but I'm saying understand what is going on. Right now, people are fearful, right? The sky is falling. The sky is falling. And that's why I'm going a little bit more aggressively, right? Yes, things are a little bit dicey right now, but that's okay. You have to figure out a way to make your numbers work. Don't force anything. Of course, stress tests, but the perfect time to buy doesn't exist. In 2008, that was a great time to buy, right? But people only talk about that in hindsight, right? Because you usually only know the perfect time, and I put that in quotes for people who are watching me on YouTube. Um, you only know whenever the time has already passed when it was the absolute optimal best time to buy. Meaning that if you would have just bought based off what your numbers were today and stopped trying to predict the future, but understand what has been stable, what has been consistent, and how to underwrite for that and stress tests, then you'll always be good, right? People who are waiting for the perfect time to buy are not true real estate investors. They're not people who are in it for the long haul, right? I bought a house in 2021, 2.99 interest rate. It ended up being a great time to buy, right? I didn't realize it. I didn't buy because of the interest rates. I bought because the numbers made sense for me, right? Because based off what was going on, based off, I planned on holding it for a minimum of 2 to 3 years, the numbers made sense. And if the interest rate did go up, which they did, I was still going to be okay. But we can't base it off of short-term news, short-term information that we have, and based off what other people are saying. Because right now, interest rates are what? Right? They're a little bit higher than what we're used to. But they're actually pretty normal if you think about the history of the interest rates and how things are going. Because back in I want to say the 80s or 90s, obviously I'm born in the 90s, but I know people who said they had an 18% interest rate, right? And if you're getting an 18% interest rate right now, you're probably going to tell me it's a horrible time to buy. But they still bought back in the day. And those homes, those homes right now, how many boomers do you know who bought a house for, 50 grand and now it's worth 1 million or 500 grand or 350 or, 600, right? That happens all the time. You know why? Because real estate is for the long haul, right? Flipping is maybe a little bit more short term. So do understand the dynamics of the economy, but you need to understand why you're in real estate and what your goals are. Because if your goal is long term, which it always should be in real estate, then you should always be buying. You should always be looking. You should always be underwriting because it is always a good time to buy if the numbers make sense. If you're watching the news and you're listening to the news saying, hey, it's only going to get worse, but you're not underwriting deals, you're not a real estate investor. You have to be underwriting deals. You have to be in it every single day, right? And that's how you know when it's a good time to buy because it's always a good time to buy if the numbers make sense. And if you think you have a crystal ball, you don't because black swan events happen all the time, whether you think so or not, right? We can look at the history of the economy. We do understand that there's always cycles, but every cycle is different. And what does that tell me? What does that tell you? That tells us that there is no for certain future of the way things are going to happen, right? Because no one could have predicted COVID. No one could have predicted 9/11. No one could have predicted the housing crash. Because what's funny is whenever things happen in the economy, good or bad, let's stick to real estate. Let's talk about '08, right? There was not a single, I don't know anyone in the world or in the industry who said, oh, I could have predicted '08. Oh, I saw the writing on the wall, right? But once it happened, once it crashed, once I forgot the company who crashed, who basically started everything, but once that happened, then people started doing some digging and then talking about, oh, we should have saw this, we should have saw that. The writing was on the wall. I could have predicted that, but they did. And what does that tell us? We can never predict what's going to happen in the future, right? And let's say we do predict something and we are right. It was all by luck because we can't tell the future. We're human. We don't have superpowers. What we can do is base things off the past, right? Make assumptions, and that's all it is. It is an assumption. And with that knowledge, buy or underwrite based off that to the best of our abilities. But during COVID, right, there was 2.99% interest rates. Do we think that's sustainable? Do we think that's stable, right? Has that ever happened? Maybe, maybe not. But interest rates always change. So when it comes to the perfect time to buy, there is no perfect time to buy. It is always a good time to buy if your numbers make sense. So stop watching the news every single day with the doom and gloom and just start underwriting. Put your head down, start underwriting, start talking to people who are in the industry, start networking, start going to conferences, start understanding what other people are seeing and how to take advantage of the time that we're currently in and how to make sure that we can do this. When I say this, we can buy this investment, we can invest in real estate for the long haul, and you will be okay. Things will never be perfect, but no one has a crystal ball. So, with that said, go home, go back to your office, get back on your computer, and just start underwriting. Make that offer, buy that deal, and make sure you understand that you can always buy if your numbers make sense. Until next time, my friends, see ya.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I really hope you enjoyed. My goal with these podcasts is to help you get 1% better every single day. And if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe and go to my YouTube channel because I post real life deals and the ongoing things that I'm doing to let you know that I'm walking the talk and not just talking about it, not just yapping. So, hope to see you next week. Till next time.